Oh, we got a lot of people in the chat already. That's awesome. How
Sweet.
is everybody doing today? Welcome to season 2, episode 31 of the Making Awesome podcast. I've got Daniel here from Slice Engineering. If you guys know hot ends, you know Slice, and if you don't know Slice, it's time to get a slice of Dan from Slice Engineering. Yes, we went for the joke in the title. We just had to do it.
Oh man.
How you doing, sir? Give us the Backstreet Boys, the who you are, the where you from, the what you did. You don't have to love me. It's fine.
All right, all right. How's it going, Grant? Okay, so who I am, my name is Dan. As you said, I am the CEO and co-founder of Slice Engineering. We make hot ends. You've got a video about what hot ends are. So if you're listening to this podcast, don't know what hot end is, go find Grant's video about what is a hot end.
I like this, calling out the CTAs early.
Yeah,
I didn't even have to ask for it. Where do I PayPal the money again?
Right. What were the other questions?
The who you are, the where you from, and the what you did.
Where I'm from. Okay, so where I'm from, I'm originally from just outside of New Orleans, but my parents were nomadic, so I kind of lived in a bunch of different places, and I moved. Let me get this number right. I moved 20 times by the time I was 18.
Whoa.
So very nomadic, and
yeah, that's a lot of moving.
Yeah, it's a lot of moving. So the 20th time was moving to Gainesville, Florida, which is where I live now, and that's where Slice is located. And so what I did was I came to Gainesville to attend the University of Florida to study mechanical engineering. And then I graduated, got a job just outside of town at a medical device company. And I told myself, I'll stay here in this town for a couple of years before I move somewhere cool and big. And that was 14 years ago. So stuck around, and now I love this place. So we're not going anywhere.
I mean, I don't know if people consider Gainesville cool, but it's big, so that's a plus.
It's not big for the state of Florida. It's big if you are from Denmark.
That's fair. Yep, that's completely fair. It is. Yeah. Okay, so why mechanical engineering then?
Mm-hmm. Why mechanical engineering? So I wanted to be a race car driver as a kid, and so I loved cars. I still love cars, and I like going fast. I rode a motorcycle through most of college and into early marriage. At some point, my wife was like, if we're going to have children, I need you to stay alive. And I was like, that's what life insurance is for. And she didn't like that answer. So eventually I got rid of the motorcycle, but I like going fast. And I wanted to, like I said, become a race car driver. And at some point I realized that my sort of mechanical bent would do better as like a race engineer as opposed to a race car driver. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to go work for my dream job was to work for Corvette Racing on the Corvette race cars.
Okay.
And then the 2008 crash happened while I was in school getting my bachelor's, and GM and everybody else cut their race teams funding way back. A lot of the teams got canceled. A bunch of the racing series got canceled or delayed. Yep. And I was like, well, if I'm going to get a job, I need to get a job. And clearly racing was not a good place to go into at the time. So I ended up getting a buddy of mine that worked at a lab on campus got me interested in orthopedics. And so I started working there, and I realized that was a really good opportunity to try and make a difference and help people, work somewhere where the products I was working on were making a difference in people's lives. And so that's why I stuck with mechanical engineering. It was really about answering. Engineering allows you to answer a lot of questions about why the world works the way it does from a physics standpoint. Mm-hmm. And that just satiates my intrinsic curiosity. and went into medical because I wanted to help people. Um,
That's a nice
and
thing about medicals. There's always
yeah,
a demand for it, right? You know,
there is.
there will always
Yeah.
be a demand for engineers in the medical field. So, okay, so
Mhm.
what then was that kind of movement of, wait a minute, there's this thing called 3D printing, and I kind of really freaking like it.
Yeah. So I'd been exposed to 3D printing in college while I was working on my bachelor's degree, and then was exposed a lot more to it in my job. And at some point, I realized I wanted to start my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I dabbled with a couple different ideas of things that I tried to start a business. And all of them were kind of, well, most of them, I guess, were centered around something technical. I like building, I like producing something physical that is tangible and I can hold and touch, and other people can hold and touch. And I don't know, there's something uh, visceral about that experience, about having an idea and then seeing it realized. And that's what I love about 3D printing technology, actually, is that it really, for thousands of years, unless you were a craftsman, unless you were, Leonardo da Vinci, you could not imagine something and then create it in real life. And now you can watch a few YouTube videos about how to download something off of Thingiverse, or learn how to use some basic CAD software, and you can take an idea that was in your head and you can print it in just a matter of hours. And
But,
so
but,
there's
but
something
Dan,
beautiful about that.
you wouldn't download a car.
No, not a car, not yet. Although, so we were
That's the
talking
old
before
internet
the podcast started.
anti-pirating joke, right? And we're like, yeah, no, actually, we kind of do this all the time.
We kind of do a little bit.
Now you're a car guy. Do you have the Corvette now? Is that the plan, or what are you
No,
driving?
I am driving a Hyundai, actually. It does have a 6-speed manual and a turbocharged engine. Um,
Okay,
it's
so it's
uh,
the
it's the Veloster Turbo.
I was gonna say it's either the Veloster or it's the Genesis Turbo.
Yeah, no, I wish the Genesis cannot fit a car seat in the back.
Not with that
So,
attitude. You have a 3D printing company. You can figure this out.
not safely, let's say that. Not
That's
safely.
fair.
My son's safety goes paramount to my desire for speed. So, um, yeah, so not the Corvette yet. The Corvette is on it's on the bucket list, but Slice is gonna have to get a lot bigger before I do that. So,
That's
yeah.
fair. And you guys kind of came onto the market just swinging, right? I know initially there was a lot of let's go with tension regarding the fact that you guys went for patents, but given what's occurring right now in the industry, it seems like you kind of saw this coming from a long ways away. What was it like to come out and say, look, we get open source, we like it, but we don't want people to copy us, so we're going to patent it. That was a pretty big calculated risk, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. We we saw what was happening to other inventors that were coming out with things and releasing them online. And the intent of the patent system originally was that nice cat.
I
Was
just got a
that
comment telling me not to forget because when the cat bed's empty, because like my cat is, if you go to the website, I swear to you, the cat's the director of marketing, director of HR. Okay, when she's not
nice.
in the bed, I catch crap if the stunt double's not in the cat bed. Like there's literally microphones and other things in it. No, put the stunt double in
Put
the
the
cat
cat in the
bed.
cat bed,
Okay,
please.
I'm sorry.
Yes. Yeah. So the patent system, if you read some of the original documents, writings from guys like Benjamin Franklin around the U.S. Patent Office,
Mm-hmm.
the intent was, how do we protect individual innovators? Ben
Right.
Franklin was an inventor, and so were a lot of the guys that signed the Constitution. Actually, a lot of them invented things. And so they had a vested interest in, how do we protect the little guy?
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, patents have become quite expensive to enforce. and even to get a utility patent, you can get a design patent as a micro entity without a huge investment, but it is difficult to get and expensive to get a patent. So, but nonetheless, there's not really another option for not being immediately undercut, because our R&D is expensive, right? It's like we spent years doing R&D work to develop a manufacturing process that worked and was repeatable, and to develop a totally breakthrough product that we knew was going to be a platform to build other products on. The Magnum came after that, and then the Magnum Plus. I mean, there will be other things in the future that are all built on this platform. And we wanted to support open source, which is why we came out with Copperhead the next year.
Yep.
But we needed revenue to pay. So like we still have to pay a mortgage, right? Like
wait. You can't pay the mortgage with exposure?
Unfortunately not.
Shit.
If I was doing that, I would just showcase my body all the time or something,
Wait, is this hinting at an OnlyFans? Is this what we're doing here? And look, I didn't ask that question because I fault you for the patents. We talk about this all the time, that patents, copyrights, and trademarks are pivotal, and that there are times when they're useful and they're used properly, and then there are times where they're used and people are just jerks about it, right? Geek Tech in the comments, I think, says it really, really well. You can't fault the company who wants to patent their designs. It's great that 3D printing things are so open source, but they feel that the industry has evolved past the area for complete open source. Now it's time for specialists. We need more companies like Slice who are dedicating their resources to a specific device. They have made leaps and bounds. And it's true, right? Mm-hmm. The Mosquito, as far as I'm aware, was the first hot end to do one-handed nozzle changes. And anyone that has done nozzle changes on other hot ends before, right? I mean, E3D V6, everyone knows them as well. How many times you burned yourself trying to hold a hot end, or
broke thermistor wires,
the pliers
snapped the nozzle.
Yep. Oh hell, I've only snapped a nozzle once, but I burn myself more often, right? It's like you get the pliers and you forget to take the silicone sock off, and you're like, screw it, we can leave it on, and then it moves a little bit, and your hand touches the hot end, you're cussing a little bit, and you're like, well, I guess I deserve that. The Mosquito fixed all of those problems, and then you guys brought out not only the vanadium nozzles for it, but the boron nitride paste, which I don't care what hot end you have, that stuff is damn good. It is good. So freaking good.
Yeah, we knew we wanted to build an ecosystem out of this that was gonna move the industry forward, and I mean that both on the some of our customers, like NASA is a customer of ours, and they actually buy boron nitride paste from us. Mm-hmm. And they, we have a lot of industrial customers as well, but also on the consumer side, we obviously need to support that side of the industry as well. So, we needed to find this line to walk, and we sort of, as you alluded to, we kind of saw the writing on the wall that companies that were specialized, as Mr. Geek Tech said. Hi, by the way. I guess you and I and he were all on a call not too long ago, the For Me call. That was fun.
That's fair. Yeah. I try not to call out where I know people sometimes, but I know most of the people in the comments, we know them well. Yeah. Geek Tech, we were hanging out on the For Me call with Mrs. Geek Tech as well.
Yes, that's right.
I'm actually excited.
We saw the writing on the wall.
Fix some stuff for us.
I do.
Setting the standards.
Yeah, we saw the writing on the wall. We thought other companies would have to start doing this. I mean, Ultimaker made that move before we, came onto the scene. You look at companies like BL Touch; they came out of the gate with a patent right away. Excuse me. But they didn't get called out for it for some reason. I don't know why we got so much heat.
And everyone's copied them. Every single person and their mother has made a copy of the BL Touch. Creality's copied the damn BL Touch.
Yeah, the CR Touch. Yeah.
Not that they're currently in litigation for patent and copyright and trademark infringement.
Right, that would never happen.
Yeah. No. No. No, that definitely didn't happen. Sorry to all of you that back the lizard on Kickstarter. Maybe companies shouldn't use Kickstarter as a marketing technique. I don't know. I'll throw shade. But and so the
Yeah.
Copperhead for you was the all right, let's play a little bit in that open source world, right?
Yeah, that was part of it. I mean, the Mosquito, we released with an open source license, so it's a non-commercial license. So we always shared the CAD files. We wanted to make sure that somebody that was using it for home use could remix. Somebody who was using it for research, they could play with it without, worrying about somebody coming after them. And that's always been the case. That was our stance in 2018. That's always been our stance. We wanted to encourage experimentation and growth without being while still being able to pay the mortgage, like I mentioned earlier, right? And continue to build an ecosystem and continue to hire people and drive innovation. Because the reality is, if you don't protect your the things that you produce, you cannot continue to produce. Even going to
Yep.
like the content side, you mentioned copyrights and trademarks earlier. If you, let's say, I mean, Tom and Stefan talked about this not too long ago on the Meltzone podcast. It was mid last year. People were stealing their content. It's like, okay, if you are a thought leader, but now your content is just sort of recreated everywhere across the internet and it's not attributed to you, you've lost your thought leadership at that point, because
Right.
people don't know, oh, Tom and Stefan came up with these ideas. And so people aren't going to subscribe to you at the same rate. Like the exposure is not being directed back to you as a content creator. And the same thing goes in a hardware world, except there's a physical product associated with it as opposed to a YouTube video or a piece of art. So it's the same concept.
Well, and when we interviewed Sanjay, of course, we were talking about this a little bit beforehand about, the news when it all happened and when we found out. When we talked with Sanjay, I asked him very clearly, was the patenting of the Revo to stop certain geometric named companies overseas from copying? He's like, yes, absolutely. That's exactly what it is for.
Yeah.
He's like, look, we don't
Yeah.
care if you do it for research purposes. We don't care if you're doing it because you're a maker. We care if you're doing it to compete with us. And
Right.
unfortunately, right, the manufacturing over there is not as good, but for most standard individuals, it was good enough. And that meant
Mhm.
that all that time and effort that we put into the engineering was just thrown out the window because we had no
Yeah.
way of recuperating that. And I'm glad that we've seen this paradigm shift in the industry of, all right, we realize that not everybody's going to pull a Stratasys on us, right?
Mhm.
That these are there to protect the intellectual property of the businesses and not stifle the community or hold the community hostage, right? It is
Right.
all about building community via proper IP. Did
Yep.
you see yourself playing with patents and IP when you were in the middle of your Mech E degree at UF? Like
No, not at
we
all.
were also laughing before that our career paths are kind of exactly the opposite. I went for
Yeah.
business school. While I am a business owner, I do a lot of engineering. You went for an engineer and now you're a co-founder. So what
Yeah.
was that shift like for you in the mindset of, wait a minute, I have to be charismatic now too? No offense to engineers, but I'm not wrong.
You're not wrong. Yeah, I never wanted to have my face on something, but I kind of realized pretty quickly that people people respond. I think we're maybe genetically hardwired somehow to respond to faces, and like a relationship, and relationships are super important. In fact, that's how we do business. Like I don't want to do business in a sort of anonymous way. So I ended up having to be the face,
Yep.
So it's kind of a weird thing, but you see the same thing. Like Sanjay was that for E3D. First, it was or Joe Prusa is that for Prusa. Obviously, his name is on it, so it's a little bit different. But
Well, and Sanjay's got the hair, right? What do we have?
right, he's got the hair,
Yeah,
right?
like
Yeah. So
what the hell do we have? My dad always said I had a face for radio. Geek Tech says the same thing. He says I'm an engineer and I have a face for radio, not a great people person. Yeah, it is very much a okay. I guess my world doesn't operate in microns and thou anymore. I guess it's dollars and cents,
right.
but okay. Do you still find yourself doing a lot of engineering, or have you just kind of
Not
focused
as
more on
much
the
as I
business side?
wish. Yeah, it's kind of the business side of things is pretty all encompassing. Like sometimes I do still get into, like, I enjoy the technical aspect a lot, and so I get into it as much as I can spare, I guess. But most of my time is spent sort of applying an engineering mindset to our business systems and the way we grow the company. So like I'll build out, business models or sales models in Excel spreadsheets. I love Excel. So that sort of allows me to analyze data and think about how do we grow the company in a way that is, has engineering principles built in, process first kind of thinking, lean manufacturing thought process, I guess.
Bob makes Bob Carnes in the comments makes a point. He says running a business is not easy. This brings up a question: is it easier to be the mechanical engineer designing the products or the guy running the business? Not which one's
Hopefully
more
my
fun.
engineers don't listen to this. Yeah. I would say it was easier for me to do engineering work than it is to run the business. Totally, definitely. Maybe it's easier for somebody else the other way, but yeah, it was certainly
I find engineering easier too.
Yeah.
And I'm not an engineer and I find it easier. We talked a little bit before about your fun relationship with E3D, that you guys are competitors but you're friends. And one of the questions I have is, do you guys have a Revo competitor?
So it's kind of an interesting question. So we already obviously have a patented system with the one-handed nozzle change that we came out with in 2018. So Revo's whole campaign around the one-handed sort of easy nozzle change, we've been doing that for 4 years. It also isn't very fast. All of our hot ends, Copperhead and Mosquito, all the way through the lineup, print quite a bit faster than Revo. They also are, all of our stuff is built like a Lego kit with interchangeable parts. Revo is now this very sort of proprietary system that is difficult to integrate with, which is not something that we're really trying to do. And then lastly, it's not abrasion resistant. And all of our stuff is really good at handling abrasives and technical plastics. Even sort of the baseline Copperhead can print PEEK if you want to print PEEK with it. And that's kind of how we've built our stuff. We want our stuff to be an industrial, like a machine tool in terms of longevity and what you can do with it. So I think the Revo is going to be a good system for certain users, but we don't really see it as a distinct competitor to what we're already doing.
And that's fair, right? Sanjay himself said in our interview that if you've watched this far into the video, the Revo is not for you. The Revo was never designed for the power users, right? And yes, the Obsidian nozzle is coming. I'm sure they're going to have a nozzle export, but on launch, none of that exists. He said that. He said it is designed for people who are just getting into the industry, that don't know what they're doing, that just need something that is easy to work on. And yeah, it is completely toolless, and it's all done when it's cold. So there is some value to that. But I'll tell you, I've got one of your vanadium nozzles running on one of our machines. It's running definitely not in our Fusion 3 that's above me up here. Definitely not, because that would void the hot end warranty. And it is a monster of a that nozzle is a monster. And just honestly, has wiped the floor with anything. The thing that I prefer about it over like a Nozzle X is that it doesn't need as much extra temperature. I find that the Nozzle X's always need 15°C maybe extra.
Mm.
The vanadium's like, what? We're totally fine. Let's just keep going.
Yeah.
Feed me more. Feed me more.
That's
So
great.
it is a little bit different running a business as an engineer. What is your leadership style like, and how has it evolved since starting Slice?
That's a good question too. So I'd had, I guess, 2 direct reports at a time before starting Slice. We've got a lot more than 2 people on the team now. So it's, I have definitely had to evolve as a leader. Last night I started reading another book on leadership because it's an area that I need to grow in. I don't think any leader would ever say they've sort of arrived, in terms of their leadership style. But I try to, like, I really care about people, and like people as individuals, not sort of, I mean, humanity as a whole, but like people as individuals, And so I try to invest in the team individually. And I think if you talk to anybody that's previously worked at Slice or that currently works at Slice, like they would say that I, take the time to know who they are and what they care about. And I guess at some point, if we're fortunate enough to keep growing, that'll be impossible because the team will be too big. But that's really, I think, if you can lead from a place of where you don't have to use your position or title, and you can just, like, people do what you ask because they believe in what you're doing and the vision that you've cast.
Right.
I think that's a much better place of leadership than being like, I'm the boss, go do this. Like that doesn't jive well with me as somebody that's reported to other people for most of my life. And that's not how I want to lead either. So hopefully that addresses your question.
It does. We've got a question from the comments. Do you have any products out now or in development for better abrasive filament performance, specifically in heat breaks? This is something I've never, I guess I must not print with abrasive filament enough, where I've heard it's possible where you can wear through a heat break with abrasive filament. Maybe we don't get a lot of abrasive requests these days. I don't know why. It's a cool material, but no one seems to need it.
Yeah. So it's interesting because we do have customers that print a ton of abrasives. And we had, how do I answer this question? So we're on our 4th iteration of the Mosquito in 4 years. So about once a year-ish, we make changes and tweaks to the design. And a lot of it is not visible from, sort of the casual user, because we're shipping thousands of these things. And so we get a lot of feedback, which is great. We need that feedback looped in order to make the right decisions to improve things.
Good and bad, of course.
Good and bad. Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that we found was a problem with our 2nd and 3rd generation heat breaks was that they would wear out after, depending on the material, but 10 to 20 kilos of abrasives. So our 4th generation heat breaks that came out last year do not wear out. Actually, somebody came out with a little YouTube video talking about, we had an OEM partner that we did this development work with, and this OEM meaning a 3D printer manufacturer. Right. So this company went out of business, unfortunately. And fortunately for this YouTuber, they acquired a universal tensile testing machine from this company that had a bunch of our heat breaks on it, just like in a bag. And so
was this company in Loveland, Colorado?
No, they were not. But that's a good question.
I'm over here like, was it Lulzbot?
So basically they had this company had this very abrasive material that wore through our heat breaks pretty quickly, much more quickly than what we would expect. And so we reworked the entire heat break. And now our 4th generation design is out and it has been shipping for the last 9 months or so.
Nice. Okay.
And again, that was a thing where we made a change. We didn't really, scream it from the rooftops, because just like, okay, this is something that happens. It's a benefit for some customers. For some people, it doesn't matter at all, right? Because they're not printing kilos and kilos of abrasive every week. But anyway, so to answer the question, our current heat breaks will withstand hundreds of kilos of abrasive filament. We have yet to wear one out. So if you wear one out, great. Please tell us. And we'd love to, we would need data with that for it to be useful. But yeah. So we can do lots and lots of abrasives. In fact, I think we can do more abrasives than anybody else on the market.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've never actually tested it. It's something that we will definitely have to test one day. We did a $5 super chat from All Strikes. Thank you very much for that. They asked, any plans for a higher max nozzle temp above 500C? I'm not certain what is really above 500C other than quite literally aluminum.
Yeah, so we test all our hot ends actually up into the 600s.
Oh.
So we rate them for 500. Copperhead's 450. Mosquito is 500, but we actually test into the 600s. There aren't any thermoplastics that I'm aware of that print at those temperatures.
No, so it's really like 450, something like that.
It's less than that. I think Ultem is, depending on the grade, looking at like 390 up to 420, and Peak is 420 to 435 ish.
That's right, Peak's
so
the hard one.
It really there are some really crazy thermoplastics that'll print higher than that, but you're still looking at about 450 max printing temperature. So I'm not aware of anything that needs to go higher than 500. But if this gentleman has a particular application, I'd love to talk to them.
Yeah, I'll strike. If you have a particular application that you're willing to talk about, throw it in the comments. We'll talk about it. Otherwise, email us and I can get you guys connected. Because when you're talking Peak, Peck, and Ultem, you're already in the absolute upper echelon of what plastics are capable of doing. I have some Ultem parts and I have some raw Ultem filament. I have no printers that can use it. So I like to grab a blowtorch and light it on fire because nothing happens. It carbonizes, but nothing happens. It does not catch fire ever.
Yeah.
And it blows people's minds. I'm like, yeah, this stuff's like $600 a kilo, though.
Yeah, it's expensive.
But it gets the job done. If you need it, right? And so many people say, oh, I need Ultem. But do you really need Ultem? Let's talk about your project. Oh, you're saying you can
more than likely
get away
polycarbonate.
With PLA?
Right. Yeah. A lot of times we're having those conversations and we come back to, okay, your application probably best served by like a CF filled nylon or a polycarbonate. Like 3D Tech is this great easy PC. It's easier to print.
I love their easy
that
PC.
Stuff's awesome.
It's great.
Yeah, it's great.
I don't know how I feel about them being sold just yet. We're gonna see how that plays out. I'm glad that Matt got it. I'm guessing is getting some sort of an exit. He worked his ass off to get there, but I'm like, oh no, please, they're my exotic supplier. I need to get my exotic supplier.
Yeah,
but I can't just call Matt on his cell phone anymore to place an order. It was so nice.
I'm sure he still could. He's still running the company as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, but he's a lot busier now. He doesn't have time to talk.
He's very busy. Yeah, he's very, very busy. I ran into him at AMUG last week and he's very happy. So that's a good thing. Yeah.
Of course he's happy. He just forgot. I don't think the number was ever disclosed, but I'm sure it was quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm sure he did well.
We got a question. Is Slice considering looking at a cold side option like with Revo, where other companies can make things like the Voron heatsink? I do like that about the Revo, where they've got the CR Revo, where I don't have to have people with Creality printers struggle to print a bracket to upgrade to something. Is there a plan to do something similar or no?
So we have a hot end called the Mosquito for Creality, which we have not promoted widely, but it is a basically direct bolt-in to a subset of the Creality machines. And we are using that essentially as a test bed to see if that's something that will work well in the market. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, it can be tough, right? And I've heard this before, and I'm sure you guys are no stranger to this. This hot end costs as much as my printer. Yeah, maybe you should consider why that's a thing. And not question why the hot end is so expensive. Question why your printer is so cheap. Ostrike replied saying that it is various metal alloys. So yeah, we were barking up the correct tree. I'm used to seeing like FDM metal is going to be like a desktop metal X from Markforged, where it's a metal powder laden inside of a binder of some sort, whether it's plastic or it's X1 where it's a sand style binding solution. I don't think I've seen it on FDM. That would be kind of cool. Have you?
Yeah, so there's a company called BASF, which is a huge chemical company. They've got a 316L it's called Ultrafuse is their filament
is good
that
stuff.
has it's good stuff. So there are a few companies out there. Virtual Foundry is another one. That has a metal infused
interviewed
filament.
them a couple of weeks
so
back.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so there are definitely options for FDM printing metal based filaments, or
hilariously though,
metal based filaments.
The Virtual Foundry's entire print farm is Creality.
Yeah, there you go.
You don't need anything special for their stuff. Ultrafuse is the same way.
Anything special.
You don't need anything special for those.
So you don't need super high temperatures for those.
I've messed around with super high temp stuff, never on official capacity with 3D Musketeers. Like, hey, on the 18th, I'm going to be going down into downtown Tampa. A guy's getting 4 more titanium printers. He's like, I want you to come down and film a video. You can make titanium parts while you're here. I said, okay. He's like, what's it going to cost? I said, a few titanium parts.
Like,
I know what the argon cost on that is going to be. We're fine. And I now get titanium parts that I can show off. Okay, so Ostrike saying corrosion oxidation is probably the main issue. And yep, that's absolutely true with metal polymers. Huh. I do like that. Okay. Filament Story says, you really love blowtorching things. More blowtorching content. Because I of course, that printer was so close to melting its heat block, and I assisted it, and then the fire was actually started by the filament, and then I used alcohol to make it faster because
to fuel the fire. Yeah.
Well, I had been on set for 5 hours in the sun in Florida. I am not someone who is purpose built for sun. So I accelerated the process. It was going to get there on its own, I promise.
There you go. We've had warranty claims where people have said they hit the hot end with a blowtorch, and they were like, hey, can I get a new one for free? It's like, what?
I actually had someone do this too. I had someone try to unclog a Prusa with a blowtorch.
Yeah.
And the entire extruder on a Prusa is made of plastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had a printer with
there's nothing left.
It was a thing. It was a thing.
Yeah.
Yep. It was a thing.
This guy got hot enough to melt to chemically break down the dye in the black oxide, like the aluminum oxide on.
That's map gas.
The anodize. Yeah, it was really hot. He burned the dye in the.
Did you warranty it though? That's really the question.
We did not. Not that one. No. It's got to be a real reason, not just I felt like taking a blowtorch to this. Can you send me something free?
That's fair. Yeah, don't worry. I'm not going to warranty anything that I set on fire. That's not the goal. So you do a lot of volunteering as well. What type of volunteering do you like doing in the community?
Yeah, so we do. Well, our whole team has a very sort of volunteer I don't know, culture. It's part of what we do. So we support a lot of different local initiatives.
Mm-hmm.
As a company, we do a lot of stuff with like on Veterans Day and on Memorial Day, we'll do stuff with like Wounded Warrior Project, for example. We try to do stuff with like veterans groups and donate to them. But personally, I'm pretty passionate about education and mentoring, and I've had some really amazing people pour into my life, and so I try to give back in whatever way I can. It's like on Saturday, this past Saturday, I went and did this talk at a thing. It was just like a hackathon event for medical students who want to start a medical-based company, and so that was just a way to give back. I didn't get paid for it or anything. I took some time out of my Saturday to go talk to students because I think that is important as humans, that we sort of pour into the next generation. So that's most of my volunteer work is in something like that. We're right next to the University of Florida, so I'm over there probably once a month or so doing some sort of talk or hanging out with students. And then I also, I'm pretty involved with my local church, so I volunteer there as well.
What is it like being right next to one of, if not the greatest engineering school in the South? Well, okay, in Florida. I was gonna say Southeast United States, but Georgia Tech's gonna give UF a run for its money.
Yeah, Georgia Tech will give us a run for our money.
Yeah. I went to St. Leo. Okay, they didn't have engineering, so I have a hard time hiring from USF. So, what is it like being so close? Do you find yourself with like a constant stream of interns?
Yeah, we've got a great stream of interns coming in. That's one of the reasons we wanted to stay here, was because we can get really very talented people.
They're not
right
jaded
down the street. So yeah,
but they're not 10 years in, and they're like,
yeah,
if I look at one more Mitutoyo product, I might die. And I'm like, please give me the Mitutoyo catalog. I can't afford it, but it's amazing.
Yeah, so we get a lot of really talented people coming right out of UF, which is really, really great. It's fun. They're fun people to work with because they're excited, and then also very smart. So that's very helpful. Yeah, so I love that. My wife works at the University of Florida. I'm pointing that way towards the screen because that's literally the direction it is. It's like 6 blocks that way.
So how close are
So,
you? You're sub 1 mile away.
Yes, yeah, we're about a mile. I think it's about a mile. Yeah.
So are you renting out the parking lot for the big football games then?
No,
paid parking to help fund research and development.
We are still very much. Give me 10 years, and we'll talk about that. So, yeah.
I love it. Can I ask what your wife does over at UF?
Yeah, she is the assistant director of the Innovation Academy, which is a program for students to minor in innovation or artificial intelligence.
That's pretty darn cool.
It's pretty awesome. She's got a great job.
Is there? I'm guessing there's got to be a 3D printing lab.
There is, yes.
Under her purview.
Yeah.
Can I make the stretch and say they're probably running slice hot ends?
You know what? I actually don't even know what they're running. I should figure that out. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just read a comment. I didn't know they had education in Florida.
Oh my gosh.
Florida man's
We've got a huge population. Lots of smart people.
Yeah, you have to go to the cities to find them, but there is a lot of very well-educated population here, I promise.
So, what's funny is the guy who actually sort of mentored me in my first engineering job he was a farmer, and no official engineering degree. He was an engineering technician, but he'd grown up, building tractors and airplanes and all kinds of stuff, and he was a phenomenal engineer. And that man really spent a lot of time with me to sort of take my understanding from very much book knowledge to how do we apply this in the real world. And that was really, really helpful. Changed my life. So, yeah.
I see we have Claire in the comments. Hi, Claire.
Nice. Hi, Claire.
You can't hide. I know your name. How you doing, Claire? We got E3D hanging out with us in the chat. Apparently, they are working closely with Oxford. We have one of our newest interns, Zach. He lives in the UK and is really interested in going to Oxford at one point. So
Nice,
he's been gunning for an internship at E3D. So I'm excited for
nice.
him hopefully to get there at some point. So what would be some good advice that you have for people that are looking to get started in specifically the hot end market in the 3D printing industry?
Mm. Do I want to encourage more competitors? I don't know. Uh, I mean, I'd say find find your niche. Figure
Mm-hmm.
out where can you add value. Um, One of our core values is value added innovation. Like we want to any product that we come out with, we want to make sure that we're actually bringing something new to the market, something relevant, something that has true value for the consumer. I don't like making Me Too products. It's just, there's no fun in that for me. And so that's kind of how our team functions. So I'd say that's my advice is if you want to start a business in 3D printing in general, or I mean, if you want to start any business, there's obviously there's room in the market uh, for Me Too products. Clearly, like that's why that's why we have patents and why E3D now has patents filed. Why Bontech and I mean that's why they're filing patents.
Yeah, not that that's gonna. This is the problem. It's like it's not gonna stop anybody. It's gonna force you to
Right,
actually enforce it. Which
right.
that's the dirty side of patenting. Not a lot of people talk about is it's like 10 plus grand to get a good patent these days, and then it's another zero on that to defend the damn thing. Right?
Yeah, or
Having
two.
legal counsel always looking, because you can't be, right? Someone has to be paid to
Mm-hmm.
do this, is got to be tiring, right?
Yeah, it's expensive and exhausting, certainly. Yeah.
My brother, Tarsman, in the comments is asking if you guys have any like connection or anything with the UFIFAS. I guess there's some wing of University of Florida down here in Tampa.
Not specifically, but there is IFAS they have multiple facilities all around the state,
Mm-hmm.
but they're more on the agricultural side. We don't specifically have a connection with them, but if he knows somebody and wants to make an introduction, I'm happy to meet him.
I think I've only ever used the vanadium nozzles. I've never actually played around with too much. I owned a Mosquito for a little bit. A client came in and needed a hot end, and the only thing that I had available was that Mosquito, and they bought it. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, and then I don't use the Taz 6 anymore. We had it on our Lulzbot
Mm-hmm.
Taz 6. I don't use the damn Taz 6.
Sure.
It's too friggin' loud. It sounds like someone's yelling at a dog in the background. So I can't run it.
Can't run it. Yeah.
So it is okay. So community over money, I guess, right? Build that community drive, have a purpose for the business, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a purpose for the business. You have to make money, obviously, otherwise you don't have a business. I feel like for whatever reason in the 3D printing community, the word profit has a dirty connotation, like you shouldn't make a profit. And I think that's a very unfortunate because people don't realize that to grow the business beyond like to hire, if you're starting solo, say, in order to hire person number two, you have to make a profit. You have to make a difference between your income and your expenses, which is called profit, in order to have enough money to invest in hiring that second person. Or let's say you need to buy another 3D printer. Like that is the difference between like that has to come out of profit. That's
Yep.
where the money comes from, is from profit. And so there's, for whatever reason, sort of profit has become a dirty word and there's a negative connotation around that. And I think we've just gotten it backwards. Like we should be excited about companies making profit. Not that there's a difference between, some CEO buying $100 million yacht and a small business being able to add another job to the local economy. Like those are two different things. And people have taken the example of excess, which is 0.0000001% of the cases, and said, okay, that's a problem, as opposed to saying 99.999% of the time, small businesses are just adding more jobs to the economy and driving innovation.
Yep. And profit.
So yeah,
I'll
profit
strike
is
it
not a
saying
bad
that
thing.
profit equals sustainable growth, and that's true.
Yep.
And yes, for larger publicly traded companies that are doing billions of dollars a year, yeah, okay, it's a little bit different than like, guys like you and I and people like Claire, Josh, David, and all of the makers that are trying to make it. Us making profit, we're not going to go buy a super yacht. We're just trying to keep our clapped out cars from dying on the road, right?
Yeah.
It's so, as an entrepreneur that's kind of taken the Sisyphus school of business approach, right? You kind of learned by probably doing and failing a little bit. What are some of those life lessons that you want to, one, pass down to your son, but then two, pass down to anyone here that's looking to get started in any business in the AM industry?
I'd say probably the very first thing is tenacity. You've got to, Slice is not the first business I tried to start. It's just the first one that worked. And so think about, I remember hearing a quote, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's something like, every overnight success has 20 years behind the curtain that you don't see. And it wasn't 20 years in my case, but I also am not saying Slice was an overnight success by any stretch of the imagination. But the amount of tenacity required to get told no, or, you didn't land a sale, or like, whatever happened, UPS lost $30,000 worth of nozzles coming back from plating. That happened, like that stuff hurts. When those sort of things happen, to be able to get up the next morning and do it again, that tenacity, I think, is what defines a lot of whether you make it or not. And so I think the number one lesson is, even now, my son's 2.5. So he's gotten over the sort of very basics of walking. He's running around now, but he has not yet learned how to sort of juke.
Object
so
avoidance has not yet been programmed.
Yes, exactly. Object avoidance is still, that code is still being written. So like yesterday, we're getting ready to leave the house, and he just like runs full tilt into the door frame, and it's like he's just laying on the ground. You're like, oh my gosh, what happened? Why did you run into the door frame at full speed? And so anyway, you get down and you tell him, okay, like, sorry, buddy, it's gonna be okay. You hold him, and then I love the the Batman quote from what's the butler's name? What's Batman's butler's name? Alfred. Thank you.
I'm like, so it's Alfred, not Bruce Wayne, that's Batman.
Yeah. So he tells him, whenever we fall back down, we get back up. That's a phrase I use with my son. So we always, every single time he falls down, we always talk about, okay, what do we do next? We get back up. And that is my number one advice for anybody wanting to run their own business. You always get back up.
Can I ask what some of the businesses were before Slice, the ones that didn't make it?
Yeah, I could probably talk about this for a whole nother podcast, but
we can book it.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we could do that. So I had 5 attempts at starting things that didn't work. I'm trying to think of what the most interesting one was. Probably the most interesting one and the most politically relevant at the moment is I spent 10 years of my life in Siberia, and I still have friends there. And there was a period of time in the mid to late 2000s and like early 2010s where there were a lot of cars being imported from Japan into Siberia, because Japan has this law about you can only drive a new car for a certain number of years, and you have to buy a new one, right? Or else you have to pay all these crazy taxes. So a lot of these cars are being sent to countries that are not as fortunate as Japan economically. One of those countries is Russia, excuse me. So I was working with a couple of guys to get American investment into Russian auto import companies that were shipping cars from Japan across the Sea of Japan and into Siberia. And then Putin invaded Crimea in 2014, and that ended any chance of American investors investing into Russian companies. And ironically, 8 years later, here we are again with Putin invading more sovereign territory. So it's pretty sad.
Yeah, it's been quite the hot topic lately. I know you do have to get going soon. I've got one final question, actually comes from Zach Smith. He's asking, what CNCs and what quantities are you guys running over at Slice?
I can't answer either of those questions, but those are good questions. We have a Swiss machine, and then we have multi-axis CNCs. We have 3, so maybe that helps to answer the questions. We do run the machines almost 24/7. Kind of depends. Basically, we'll set up on something, we'll run it for a week, and then reload onto something new. We've got a great operations team that schedules production really efficiently.
All about process and production control there for sure.
That's right.
I can answer that question maybe if I ever find myself in your area and we're able to come up and shoot a video doing a tour. I figure we have to blur a lot of things in there, but I always want to show people what it's like inside of one of these facilities, because it feels like magic until you're like, oh yeah, it's dudes press and go and then pulling parts out, unless they're already running cobots where the cobots are pulling all that stuff out. And hopefully a future thing. And Geek Tech said, moving from Siberia to Florida, went from frozen to hard boiled.
That is seriously, that's why I live in Florida. I'm not kidding.
But Simple Electron says, aren't you both in Florida? Florida can't be that big. I'm down in Tampa, you're up in Gainesville. I think that's like a 3-hour one-way drive. Something like that.
It depends on what part of Tampa, but it's about 2.5.
Okay, I'm 30 minutes north of Tampa, so short of that. I gotta go to Tallahassee.
So that's probably 2.
Which is like 4 hours in one direction. But yeah, man, I know you got to get going. I appreciate it. Any final thoughts that you want to leave anybody with?
Final thoughts. I'm really excited for Murph coming up. That's gonna be great. And Rapid is coming up as well. So if you guys are going to Murph or Rapid, we'll be at both events, exhibiting and sponsoring. So please come by and check us out.
You're gonna be at IRF as well, right?
We will be at IRF as well.
Okay, I'm planning on IRF. I don't think I can make it to Murph. IRF is far enough away. I'm like, we should be able to pay for it by then. playing that game. But cool, man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Do you know? I don't think you know the outro. Do you know the outro?
I don't know. What's the outro?
Good. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome with awesome people like Dan, Slice Engineering. Season 2, episode 31. Thanks, guys, for coming out. Have a good one.